It's live now.
Okay. How are you reading? Would you like to read it, or would you rather for me to read it?
You mean you want me to read it on?
Yeah,
I can read it.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. That'd be perfect.
We're gonna read the whole thing, or?
No, the whole thing. And
Okay.
then we're gonna go through it.
Okay.
And, okay. Here you go.
Okay.
You can pass it.
Okay. Oh, I need to go. Bismillah. Okay. We ready?
Yes.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. An open letter to Imam Khamenei, may Allah escort his every step, by Abu Dar. Allah, salam and grace upon you and yours. I write to you after hesitating and pausing many times. I am fully aware that you know much more than I do. I am also intensely aware of the sensitive circumstances within the Islamic rank and file, as well as the global ganging up of the ruling elites against your leadership and the 41 years of the Islamic Revolution that has fought valiantly when it had no other choice, remained calm and intimidated, and led the way when others were lost in the political and ideological wilderness of our current times. I think my silence from here on would be considered an accessory to the counter-revolutionaries who are of many shades, from the MKO to members of the clergy who disguise themselves with their religious attire. I humbly divulge to you my innermost feelings and thoughts about my trepidation concerning internal enemies who I maintain are much more dangerous in the long run than any external enemy can be. Let me begin by saying with your forbearance that during the course of the past several years, I have noticed a gradual reappearance of the Islamic atavistic dogmatists, some of whom are outright bigots, throughout North America and some countries in Africa and the Middle East. Most of the ones I know of and know about are what may be called Sunni phobes. They are linked to the houses in both Islamic Iran and Iraq. They are supported disproportionately with all the means that it takes to cause division among the Muslims and to even cause divisions among the Shiites. I would not disclose what is to follow had it not been for their troublemaking potential, which has been on the rise recently. In the first incident, more than 20 years ago, one of these individuals who currently is in your inner circle summoned me to his office and told me, along with a colleague of his, who I was at the time, I believe, the representative of the Islamic Republic of Iran at the World Bank, to vacate my responsibilities at the Islamic Education Center, IEC, in Maryland. One of them also told me on another occasion to cease praying Salatul Jummah in the street, as I have done every week since March 1983, outside the Islamic Center in Washington, D.C. Another one of these regressive individuals who has access to the highest levels of decision makers in the Islamic Republic of Iran accused me of being a Wahhabi. This same person surreptitiously superimposed a sectarian book into the Islamic Center in Washington, D.C., which led to heightened sectarian meaninglessness that eventually culminated in the unlawful seizure of the Islamic Center in Washington, D.C. by a nexus of Saudi American officials. These individuals, with their inability to build bridges with other Muslims, are considered assets by high-level officials and have their operational connections in the Islamic Republic of Iran. The sectarian voice is becoming louder. A Shi'i Islamic center in the Washington, D.C. area invited a speaker who gave a presentation in public, which he knowingly and provocatively spoke ill about a companion of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is his opinion, and he is entitled to it. But for him to express such an opinion in an Islamic center that is considered by everyone to be a virtual Iranian center, sponsored by the government in Iran, becomes an issue that weighs very heavily on my conscience, as I have been advocating and promoting Islamic togetherness among Shi'i and Sunni Muslims all my life. How can I continue to encourage Sunni-Shi'i solidarity when such Shi'i provocations are voiced in an Islamic center linked to the Islamic Republic of Iran? In another Islamic center, which is considered a virtual surrogate of the Islamic Republic of Iran, also located in the Washington, D.C. area, a periodic speaker there, a professor who I first met during a MSA PSG sponsor activity in the Chicago area more than 30 years ago, is known for his aversion to Walaya al-Faqih. This same person said, and I heard this directly from him, that he does not believe in unity amongst the Sunnis and Shi'is. I surmise that you may be aware of other speakers and spokespersons on the international Shi'i speaking circuit who are, on one hand, ill-disposed toward Walayat al-Faqih, and on the other hand, disinclined toward Islamic Sunni-Shi'i cohesion. I am aware that some sketchy characters in the Washington, D.C. area want to dump all the culpability upon the Islamic Education Center and its administration, and I do not exonerate the IEC entirely. What they are not saying, though, is that they are equally blameworthy for the sectarian and nationalist trends that have taken hold during these years. These and much more Shi'i sectarian manifestations are very troubling inasmuch as they purport to represent the Islamic orientation and the Islamic leadership in Islamic Iran. I am aware that the civil war in Syria has taken its toll on many Islamic individuals whose bottom line is that Shi'is from Afghanistan, Pakistan, Lebanon, etc., were fighting Sunnis from all over the world, and not any Sunnis, rather Sunnis who should have known better, Sunnis who come from Islamic movements. The problem with this characterization is that it concedes Saudi Wahhabi representation of the other 1.5 billion Sunnis in the world. There were more Sunnis killed in Syria and Iraq, for that matter, than there were Shi'is killed by the Wahhabi Saudi Takfiri nexus. Obviously, such assessment amounts to a lack of discretion and a damaging mistake. The Zionist imperialist Wahhabi instigated civil war in Syria in particular, but also in Iraq, as I see it, is a deep wound in Islamic conscience, which will not heal if sectarianism, both Sunnis and Shi'is, are calling the shots. With your permission, let me disclose to you my modest foresight of what may emerge in the future course of Islamic self-determination in and around the Holy Land. There is and has been a welcome consolidation of an impending united front of combat-ready Muslims from Islamic Iran to the areas north of colonized Palestine. This accomplishment has driven the Zionists and their allies into deep-rooted but well-hidden despair. But this same accomplishment carries within it a sectarian contagion due to the fact that the Sunnis feel discriminated against in the millions, or made into refugees in the millions, or forced into involuntary oppositional silence in the millions. This type of democratic volatility, if not resolved in good time, could come back to get even with its ostensible oppressors, the sectarian Shias, with its ostensible oppressors, the sectarian Shias. Parallel to this East-West generational military consolidation commanded by your Islamic leadership, there is another North-South additional embryonic consolidating front of inclined Islamic movement Muslims. This war front in the making has the government in Turkey with its Islamic-oriented statesmen linking up with the Islamic movement members from Egypt. This new alliance finds its common ground in Libya. Should this developing alliance of committed Muslims win their common battle against the Saudi, Emirati, Egyptian regimes impose war on them in Tripoli, that will become a game changer, and the Muslims of the world will have another consolidated military force that can deliver on the liberation of the Holy Land. Within this up-and-coming alliance, if it manages to overthrow the military dictators in Egypt, there are those Sunni sectarians who carry with them the wounds of Syria and Iraq. The North-South unity for liberation, Turkey and Egypt, and the East-West unity for liberation, Islamic Iran to Lebanon, are the ideal juggernaut for the final undoing of the Zionist colonization of the Holy Land. To establish a justice-based order for all its people, and by extension, the end of the Wahhabi Saudi colonization of the hallowed land, Arabia, this can become the climax of the Islamic Revolution. Some significant parts of the Sunni Islamic movement have freed themselves from Saudi hegemony in the past years. They committed serious mistakes, and they paid for those mistakes, and we pray they have enough maturity in them to join hands with you and the dedicated Islamic core to do what has been done. Sadly, considerable parts of the Shia Islamic revolution have obstructed themselves by regressing into the pre-Walayatul Faqih attitude, which serves sectarianism and otherism. I need not recall the sad days in the 60s and 70s when the late Imam Khomeini, Rahmatullahi alayh, was considered a menace and an agitator by the Hausa and its well-known margin. It appears to me that those high up relapsing religious scholars have made a comeback. And if things continue the way they have been going, I fear that history will have repeated itself. The same way that forces of the status quo that were defeated by our beloved Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, came back through Umayyad scheming and imposed a king on the Muslims, that is, Muawiyah. The status quo forces of the pre-Islamic revolution who were defeated by Imam Khomeini are poised to take over and declare there cannot be an Islamic government in the absence of the 12th Imam. There may be a Muawiyah lurking, waiting for his moment to strike. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forbid. My humble advice, and your knowledge is superior to mine, is to initiate a cultural revolution. The time has come. It is either that, or may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us, our children and grandchildren, may end up saying, once upon a time we had an Islamic revolution. I don't mean to be unenthusiastic or pessimistic. I only meant to say what is on my mind and in my heart. Forgive me if I hurt your feelings in any way. May the Almighty shower you with His blessings and guide you as you are a radiance to the rest of us. Please accept my modest greetings and my sincere salutations and my congratulations on the occasion of the 41st year of an enduring and unbowed Islamic revolution. And I am a trustworthy advisor to you. It's Surah 7, Ayat 68.
Okay. Can I have the, no, that's this, does anybody recognize any of this stuff right here? Unbelievable.
Yeah.
When I read this, I said, well, we got a good topic for tonight. I just went to the mailbox and took it all. I must have read it this morning because last night I went home in. So, if we remember what we've been discussing recently, this covers everything
That we've been talking about.
everything, and not only we've repeated all of this several times.
Right.
And so, would anyone have any idea why this would come out at this time?
Yeah, I don't, it seems just a little bit more on the pessimistic side of things. Like, honestly, we got a lot of things going our way. And that seems very pessimistic, the tail end of it, right?
Well, to me, I think people are seeing that there's an effectiveness behind it. That what you've been saying is once again, has the potential, if not already, is happening. So, like I said, it looked like, they were trying to get out in front, take your shine away.
They call it in the cowboy days, head them off at the pass.
Head them off at the pass, right.
Pass.
That's what it looks like to me, but.
Right. That's not quite possible because of the long history. Unless none of these have been going out. Unless these are, but I assume I'm actually, have these things been going out around?
Yeah.
Okay, then that's why I wanted to go over this, because we have to think, okay, why would somebody come out with this word for word type, but not with the same attitude as we have.
Right.
It may, yeah, it's pessimistic about certain things. Number one, we've always talked about the strategic alliance. The strategic alliance. Iran, Iraq, Syria, and then Russia, which will eventually also mean Yemen and what have you. And we've talked, this thing about Walayat Faqih is very important. And remember, we was talking about Marjiyat last week, in detail. Right. That's one of the things that they have to solve amongst themselves.
Right.
Okay. So just to go over some, we'll just go by step. Abu Dhar, of course, is Muhammad al-Assad. There's no doubt about it. No, everybody knows that. And the language is right here when he uses Islamic atavistic dogmatist, I know we all know what it is, but I just happen to have a dictionary. Activism, the reappearance of a characteristic in an organism after an absence of several generations. It could be caused by a recessive gene or complementary genes. It has in here about ancestor, father, even grandfather. So it's the reappearance of something after one or two or more generations. For the longest, this stuff started a long time ago. I mean, everyone is involved. When I used to go to Iran during the revolution, they would say, Mark Bar Amrika, Mark Shoravi, and then the Mark Bar Hujjati. I don't know if y'all remember me saying. Hujjati is the, when they mentioned the houses, and it's like when we mentioned Imam Khomeini when he was in Najaf. When Imam Khomeini was in Najaf, his biggest challenge was not the Shah. It was the ulama. When you look down at the end, there's a statement about Imam Mahdi, the 12th Imam. The cardinal belief in Shiism, technically, is that it is the job, the duty, the responsibility of Imam Mahdi to establish the state. Right? Just like in whatever it is,
Right.
it's the job of Isa alayhi salam to come, or the Messiah. We don't want to say Isa because the Jews don't think it. It's the job of the Messiah to come and establish the kingdom, el reino de Dios, the reign of God on earth. In Shiism, the 12th Imam's responsibility, his job, is to establish the whole plan of God on earth. That's his job. And it's the 12th Imam only. That's his responsibility. Raja means to return or to come back. They believe he was born, and at 3 years old he disappeared. And then they have a Ghaibatu Shubra, the small guy hiding, and Ghaibatu Kubra, the big guy hiding. The small disappearance is